And I have to say, I'm really excited to be here today because, as you were saying when we were talking before, I haven't actually met you in person, Dani, but I'm one of the co-founders of North Point Academy, and of course you have met Matt Trenchard, who is the other co-founder. So I actually lived in Dubai, but I don't live in Dubai anymore. So I'm coming to you from a very rainy day in the UK. It was sunshine yesterday and now it's rain today. I came to Dubai in 1999. So, and I only left in 2018. So I spent a lot of my time, the first kind of period of my time, working for Emirates Airlines. And I then was exposed in that job to some coaching, and I thought, oh, I like this. I want to learn more. So I found a course, and I did a course in around 2007. And so I just jumped. I knew it was right, and I had an opportunity to jump and to work with actually the trainer of the course. And I haven't looked back, really. So I have been operating as a coach since that time. And Matt and I met in 2012. No, before 2012, actually, in 2010. And we were working on a project together with Emirati youths. And we connected over coaching. And when we left that company around the same sort of time, we decided, let's grow something together. And so North Point Academy was born. It's been through a few permutations, and in 2016 we developed what's our flagship program, which is our certificate in professional coaching, which is an accredited coach training program. So personally, I'm married in Dubai. I had a daughter in Dubai, and she's she's wonderful and at the same time annoying and wonderful. So when we came back here, there was a whole settling in period, and I was continuing to work on the Dubai programs, but in January this year I set up North Point Academy UK. So we now have a UK branch operating.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's good to hear. Yeah. So for those that are joining us either through the Facebook group, on the Zoom call today, or watching on the replay, let's talk a little bit first about what is coaching. And you sort of mentioned that you had this like experience at the beginning, during your career, that's, what was that interaction, and what is coaching, and how can it benefit us?
Yes. So coaching is very much helping people to find the answers for themselves. So a lot of people think that coaching is telling people what to do, giving them advice. We have a lot of people who come to me asking asking to be involved in our coaching training, and then they say, oh, I'm coming because people always come to me for advice, and actually then they come on the course and they learn that, oh my goodness, it's not about giving my content, it's about believing in the other person and that they have the answers, and they are able to empower themselves. So it's about empowering and enabling others to find those answers for themselves. And I think that's one of the key points, and it's one of the key areas where our trainee coaches have difficulty in the early sessions, just getting to a place where they're not sharing their own content and giving the ideas and jumping in with assumptions, but they're actually allowing that person to find their own answers. Yeah. And so sorry, go ahead, Dani.
Saying in the space, I think coaching is very much usually akin to that sort of personal development, personal growth kind of world. Yeah. Obviously, from our perspective, we're looking at the whole landscape when it comes to mental well-being and well-being in general, of things that can be productive for us. So when we think about mental health, we have that spectrum from having a bad day to,
Yeah.
be in full crisis mode. And I
Yes.
definitely think coaching has a role to play in both the, helping, like you said, people to guide themselves through
Yes.
wherever they're up to, but also from a prevention space as well. If we can get a little bit more to grips with who we are, what our values are, what excites us, then that's maybe something that
Yes.
we
Yeah.
will be able to get deeper in ourselves.
I mean, certainly I have coached people who are also receiving some form of counseling for other areas of life. So the difference between coaching and counseling, and I think maybe you even touched upon that with Matt previously, is that people are able to move forward. Coaching might be the place. So they may be having some problems, they may be having a difficulty around something, but they can see a way forwards. Often in counseling, you're needing help to even explore the problem and to understand it, and you can't move forwards until you've done that. So I myself have had counseling and receive coaching, and I have also coached people who have difficulty in some areas but want to move forward, say with their career, and they want some coaching around that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think there are so many different solutions, let's say, for mental well-being that are out there, and you've got to really understand what's right for you. So very much this session, I wanted to give people a sort of sneaky peek into, some of the, insides of coaching, like some of the actual processes and I don't know what the name of them is, and maybe you can kind of take us through a few of those examples to see if it's something that we feel would work for us. And I think this is the beauty of us having this platform, that we can introduce people to things that maybe they've considered or maybe they've not considered. It may resonate with you, may not, but it's just kind of like let's put it out there and we'll see how it works. We're here to answer questions, so please let us know as we kind of go. But I will hand over I need to figure out how to do this now.
We've said, it'll be easy.
Oh no, Dani's in the abyss again. 1 second. I think this is how it works. And I can hand over so you can share, because I know you've got some slides for us.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
so
cool. You can share.
Let's have a look. Yes, I can share. Whoopee, it's working. And so can you see my screen? Hopefully you can. Yay, it's working. So one of the things that we North Point started doing when COVID happened was we recognized in ourselves that we went into very much a panic mode when it initially happened, and I think many people experienced that, and even now, we were talking before people came on about the fact that my daughter's going back to school, and you said drift over that, but because people in Dubai won't be happy to hear that, but even that brings a level of uncertainty. There's lots of change happening for us at the moment, and lots of uncertainty about the future and what's going to happen and how it's going to impact us, and that can have a massive impact upon our emotions, and therefore it can lead to difficulties in areas like health, our financial areas, our social. These are areas that are really impacted by COVID and our emotions around them. And I know for one that immediately I was like, we run our programs in person. What are we going to do? How am I going to make money? And how is my daughter going to cope with being at home? How am I going to cope with her being at home? And my husband too, he's usually in the office. So all these emotions can really have an impact upon us. And then we decided that we wanted to contribute, because we realized that as coaches, we have some really powerful tools that can really help others, and it can help ourselves as well. And it was when we built up our Coaching for COVID initiative, which includes coaching from our North Point alumni, individual and small group. And it also includes a Monday night session that we do every week, which helps people through a large group coaching session to become more self-aware about some of the things. So we bring different tools each week, and they're able to better adapt and therefore, you know, feel better in themselves, and then able to help others. And so really what I wanted to do today is bring some of the tools that we've been discussing in there that can help us today to help ourselves and become more self-aware, but also perhaps we can use it with other people around us if we're noticing where they are. So yeah, so I'll move on to the next slide, and just a little bit about North Point, because our philosophy is around building transformational communities living from the inside out. So that's kind of our purpose for being. And what does that look like? What does that mean? So it means that we're vulnerable, we're open, we're ready to open up ourselves, be authentic, and work with people. But we also believe in working from the inside out. And the reason I'm giving this introduction is because I think it's key to our philosophy and some of the models you're about to see. We believe that we have an internal world and an external world, and we need to work on the inside first and bring that out into the external, and work on those sorts of feelings and the beliefs that are getting in our way. And we all have our caves, our shadows, our areas that we're working on, and they may be different to one another. But we need to find our way out of those caves and to see things as they truly are on the outside. And then finally, one of the things which is so true about coaching, I mentioned it earlier, about believing that the person has the answers. So if people are objects of greatness, they can find the answers for themselves. They can find the way through, so we don't need to tell someone what to do. So that's really about our philosophy. And so then I was thinking, who is here today? You know, I was wondering, and I was thinking, well, actually, whatever we do, whatever job we're in, we're all, you know, we all have families and spouses and partners and fathers and mothers and children, you know, and we may be working, we may not, we may be homeschooling. And this reminds me of that poem that was out there about, you know, we're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. But we have some things in common. And some of those things might be about desiring to learn, being open to ideas, and passionate to help others. So my presentation and the things that I'm bringing come from that mindset. So, and then I just love, by the end of our time together today, in the next however many minutes, that we've been able to recognize some things about ourselves, where we are today, and have learned some practical tools. So some things that we can do both for ourselves and others to care for ourselves. So that would be my intention.
That sounds like a great intention.
Wonderful. I'm so glad. So the first model I want to introduce you to is our North Point Meta model. And it's a model that we base everything on. And it really helps us to inform us what's going on. So as you can see from this model, we're describing that there's an internal world and an external world. And the internal world is made up of thoughts and feelings at a basic level, and beliefs, and various other kind of areas, but essentially the thoughts and the feelings. And then on the external side, our actions and our impact. So our thoughts lead to the way we feel, our emotions. And then they lead to the actions that we take. And then we have the impact that we have externally. And then actually, it works in a cyclic way. So that the impact we have then goes around to new thoughts and so on. So if I think to myself, I don't know if I can run this business anymore, what am I going to do? If they're the kind of thoughts that I'm having, if I'm thinking, how am I going to cope with my daughter at home? Then there are going to be feelings that come from that, feelings of anxiety, feelings of concern and worry, and they will lead to me taking certain types of actions, which may be to sit and do nothing. It may be to do something destructive. It may spur me on, but there will be some form of action, and that will have an impact both on myself and those around me. And one of the impacts will be that I'm kind of continuing in this spiral. And when we become more aware of this, when we become aware that there's this cyclic way of working, we can challenge some of that. And we can become more self-aware. And usually there's an area where people find more challenge in noticing. So you'll notice up here, and I don't know if people would like to even write in the chat box or just have a think for yourself, but what's more of a challenge for you? Is it knowing your own thoughts? So the thoughts that you're having? Is it accepting your feelings, your emotions, or is it choosing your actions? Or might it be that you have more challenge when you're taking responsibility for the impact that you have on other people and the world around you? What do you think, Dani?
As you when you first said about knowing your thoughts, I was like, yes, it's that one. And then as you worked around the circle, I was like, oh, it's that one. No, it's the yes, it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, yes, and it can be. And there's usually something that we find more challenging. I know that for me, choosing my actions has always been, it changes as well contextually, but choosing actions, I'm quite aware of my thoughts. I am able to be in touch with my emotions, and I'm fairly vulnerable and open. But then choosing my actions from that, I sometimes have difficulty in making decisions to move forwards that can be useful for me and others. I let others kind of impact me into changing my actions. So yeah, and I'm noticing there's some people saying, the impact. So yeah. And so it will be different for everyone. I sometimes will have people on our course who cannot even express the emotion. And so there's a block there in getting from, so they recognize the thoughts and they may say, these are my thoughts. And you say, okay, so what's the emotion around it? And they give you another thought. And they say, I feel, but they give you a thought. And then they tell you about the action, but they can't get into that thought. And one way to think about that, if you're in that space, is where do I feel it bodily? Where is it in my body? Is it in my stomach? Is it in my throat? What is it that I'm feeling? And then that can help you to practice. But they're like muscles. And once you realize, so those people who have said, it's impact for me, once you realize that, you have an awareness, then you can start thinking, well, what impact do I want to have? What kind of responsibility do I want to take?
Awareness is a key thing that comes through in every single session. And I'm always kind of like, I can have a little chart next to me and like, there it is again. I think it's kind of so important. I suppose from like my perspective, I was saying, if there's like multiple things, is it normal that it's not just one thing?
Totally, yes. If you say that it's kind of the whole, putting the whole together, then yeah, of course it might be that sometimes I don't know my thoughts in this, and sometimes I have a bit of difficulty accepting my feelings, and that's okay. And okay, choosing my actions, not great either. But there will be areas then in all of those where you do. So maybe it's perhaps it means that you have all of it, but that you could do more work on all areas.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of the comments that are coming through. It feels difficult to make an impact when people around me are not on the same page. I think probably a thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Down to our uniqueness.
Yes, yes, and I have a model coming up later that may speak into that, the circles of control, influence, and interest, because there's things we can control and there's things we can't. So we have an influence over our impact, but we don't necessarily have full control over it. But we can still. There are areas where we can choose things. We can choose our thoughts. We can choose our actions. It's a bit harder. Feelings tend to flow from our thoughts, and we have to change our thoughts to change the emotion behind it. And to change the impact, we have to change our actions. So there are two areas of choice there where we can do something to change things. And so we have to understand what's within our control and what's not within our control.
Makes sense. And I suppose that's what you said about Jenna's comment here, where she's saying that sometimes the impact doesn't align with the action. To rethink and rework the action to match the desired impact.
Yes. Yes, choice, exactly. And we also need to work around this and say, we can ask ourselves, well, what would I like my beliefs, my thoughts to be? What would I like to be focusing on? What would I like to be, what would I like my impact to be? And therefore, what kind of thoughts and feelings and actions need to happen in order for me to have that impact? And then you give yourself a lot more control over it. You can't control every part of it, but you can control the parts that you're responsible for.
Yeah, sure, makes sense.
Yeah. So let me move on to that. So that really is the core of what we bring, and all of our models then come from that. And I'm actually going to skip over that, although I would love to know, knowing what you already know, what would people on the call like to have achieved by the end of the session? What would what would have been the great use of our time here today? And when we're working with our coaches and our clients, we always set intentions to help people to start a session with the end in mind. So what does success look like at the end of today? So when we get them to speak it out, we get them to speak it as in, by the end of this today, or by the end of this session, this is what I have achieved. I have learned new skills. I have connected with new people. I've learned some new tools. So if anyone wants to put in the chat box, what they would like to get out of today, and then it would just help me to make sure that I'm on the right track, and and don't feel it's necessary, but if you feel that you would like to share your personal intention, I shared mine, then please feel free to chat in, and I can then modify how I speak to you about things.
Yeah, I think I'm commenting because that's the thing, for me, I'm always an attendee on these sessions too.
Yes.
I'm here I have the lucky job of getting every single session.
Yes, so you do.
I think it's always, I really enjoy new perspectives on things. I think we go through life with our blinkers on, and at the moment we're in that sort of survival mode versus thrival mode. Is thrival a word? I don't know.
Yes.
No. So yeah, I think that looking for ways that and this has always been something I've said, I want to thrive, not survive. And
wonderful
perspectives on how to kind of be that person.
Wonderful. So I will endeavor to give you some new tools, and I'm seeing other comments about tools and so on. So let me get into a couple of tools that can really help you and help others. And this is our levels of attention. So And as you look at this, you can see that there's an area, there's a mountain, and there's an area that's underwater. And this is really about where are you focusing your attention. So, and quite often we can tend to get into the drama and the problems without even realizing. We can start focusing on our, you know, I don't know what's happening, and get into panic mode, and we tend to stay there and spiral into that area because we can't get out of it, because we're going round and round in circles. And you know, the problems are like looking at the issues as well. And this is really to, again, that word, bring awareness. Where are you? And it's looking at it and saying, where am I on this? Where am I placing my attention? So it's not where am I now, it's where is my attention? Where is my focus? Where is my thinking? And as you start looking at this model, you can say, oh, I'm definitely in the drama and problems. And that can really help you to say, is that useful? Is that the place where I need to be? Or do I need to be somewhere else? And it's not, by the way, a trip up the mountain. So it's not like, oh, I have to strive to get to tactics and strategy and vision. You can helicopter yourself to the top of the mountain if you want, if vision is the most useful place. So it's not a step-by-step journey in this case. It's, do I need to be doing something right now? You know, doing actions. So the tactics are the actions. Or do I need to understand how I'm going to do it, some of the strategy, the plan, or do I need to have that vision? And quite often the vision is a good place to start if you can get there, because it really gives you, it pulls up that motivation level. But you don't have to be there. It may be, I have a business partner, he knows who he is, who is very much on the vision level all the time. And sometimes I have to say, hey, Matt, come down with me. We need to do something here today. And by the way, I'm fairly similar. So I'm being a bit mean and cruel to him today because he's not here. Essentially, we need to choose where is the best place for us to be. And we can also help others by looking at this. So when we notice people going into this problem mindset, we can say, okay, I actually show people it. I say, here's this model, and where are you on here in terms of your thinking? What are you focusing on? And is this useful for you in this moment? Is it going to help you to make a difference? Is it going to help you to create something? So when we went into lockdown, as I said, I started panicking around the business. The business in the UK particularly was very new. And I had just like put investment into it to build up some clients, and suddenly I couldn't deliver my program. I hadn't gained enough clients to be able to speak to people enough, and so I remember some days going, my business is finished. It's finished, to myself, and maybe to others too. And then as I started realizing where I was focusing, when I started looking at where do I need to be instead, and how, and for me, it was, I needed to be in the strategy. I needed to say, how can I move forwards? How can I, you know, it wasn't even the what at that point, but it was the how can I, you know, have a better attitude around this? How can I move forwards? And then it was, what are some of the things I need to do? So, because I always have a very strong vision, so I didn't need to go all the way up there, because I knew, you know, and that helped me pull back to my vision. So I don't know, as you think about that, I'm wondering what thoughts you have.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think I like how you can also, and I think so someone had commented about tools that you can help people that you work with as well, and I think this is, you know, I'm a big fan of any sort of tools, especially kind of in these sort of like very sort of processy almost. So I'm like, yes. Okay, let's get rid of the clutter and the noise, and let's just sort of focus. And yeah, I can definitely see. And I'm always glad to hear as well that, you know, the founder of a coaching academy also has to use her own tools every now and then to be
Oh,
like,
yes.
which always, like, it always brings you know, yeah, again, that reality that we don't all have the answers, and actually using things like this can help us to get a little bit more clarity every now and then.
Yes. And in fact, Matt and I developed this because of the needing and wanting the tools ourselves and use them on ourselves for a year before we let it loose on the rest of the population. So we knew it worked. And this, as you say, is great for working with people, and it's a very nice way to present it, because you're not saying, oh, by the way, you're in your drama, get out. It's more of a gentle approach. It's where and it allows them to really come to that conclusion themselves.
Yeah.
You know, where do you think you are? And, you know, where is your focus? And I was working with a client, a very difficult coaching experience for me, where this lady was having problems in the workplace, and just every session I was with her, she was coming out, starting each session, talking again about the problem that she was having. And she'd be there almost for 20 minutes if I wouldn't interrupt. And this model was a great awareness for her. And I think by the end of it, I was like, hey, where are you again? Oh, yes, I'm in my problems. I'll drag myself back. Yeah. So it's a great awareness giver, but it can also help people to understand where they would rather be and where it's useful for them to be. Yeah. So that's one tool. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions about that, but I'm happy to take them as we go along. And you know, feel free to type in. And I'm wondering, even, where are the people on this call? You know, where's your thinking at the moment? Where are you focusing? And where would it be useful for you to be instead if you're in somewhere which isn't useful? Problems for sure. There we go. So it's where do I need to be instead of that place? And we're not saying that you don't have problems. We do have problems. So you may actually be in a situation where you're experiencing problems, and it's what is my mindset around that? Am I delving into those problems and letting it drown me, or am I lifting myself above water? And there we go. So you need to have a vision. So you're already beginning to all recognize where you need to work on. Fantastic. Okay. So I'll move on to this. And some people may have seen this before. It's a model that's kind of out there. I mentioned it earlier about where we have control and where we have influence. But we have adapted it to include our meta model in there. And so there's three kind of circles, and you'll notice the smallest is the area of control. So where we have control is the smallest area. And it really is made up of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. So let me go to the outside circle. Interest, it's areas where we have no control or no influence. So in our programs, we used to give examples like, you know, the weather, the Shakeside Road traffic, and things like that, and acts of God. And of course, one such thing that might be out there somewhere at the moment, coronavirus, dare I say the word. So we have no control over that. It's there. And where people struggle is when they try to control the areas that they either have an influence in or an interest in, but they can't control that because it's outside of their area of control. So influence would usually include other people. So it's the impact of on other people around you. And you can influence that. So as I was saying before, you can do things, you can change your own thoughts, feelings, and actions to influence the impact, but you can't control the whole of the impact because it involves another person. But you can have an impact there. But quite often we want to control that circle there, the influence and the interest areas. We're trying to control those areas, and that's where our map kind of doesn't fit. And we cause ourselves pain as a result of that. So I think that we really need to look at what we can control, and the things we can control are our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So I'm wondering, as I say that to you, what are your thoughts, Dani, and what is everyone else's thoughts?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I think as human beings, I don't know whether this is just like the noise around us, the media, it's like that we're these kind of superheroes that can do and be everything and be everywhere and fix everything. And actually, a lot of the time we are stepping out of that circle. And I can very much relate to, you kind of use the word pain when we're trying to control things that are uncontrollable. And that's what it feels very much like. That it's that kind of space that is just set up for suffering when we're not able to. But it also feels that it's like, it's easy to put it in a slide. It's like easy to have it on paper. It's very well trodden path for most of us. That those are our expectations, and it's. But it makes sense. I think sometimes we have to see these things in black and white and be like, okay, see how that works.
Yes, I agree. It's something that takes practice, and it takes. That is actually why coaching sessions and coaching series happen over a period of time, because for change to happen within ourselves and for us to start untreading those paths that are less useful and treading the new, more useful road, we definitely need to be working on ourselves consistently over a period of time. And that's where coaching can really help with that. We can, we start to recognize those awarenesses. But if we recognize it once, we might go, oh, okay, and off we go and go back to the old way of doing things. But change and transformation takes time. And as we said, we're about transformation. And so it's really working on the inside. And so it's helping people to recognize the thought and maybe the belief behind the thought that's getting in the way, and then to start changing that thought. And the way you do that is by having them give themselves evidence of it. So, by taking a small action. So I can give you an action of one of my first coaching sessions as a coachee. And I was focusing on my health and fitness. And we got to the end of the session and we'd been talking about it. And she said, what actions are you going to take? And I said, okay, so I'm going to go out running 6 days a week. And she went, whoa, hang on a minute. Is that realistic? Are you going to do that? And what's going to happen if you do, and I went, oh, well, yeah. And she obviously got from my tone of voice that it probably wasn't going to happen. And so she said, and what is that going to do to your motivation should you not be able to do, be able to fulfill this? And then she talked about how the smallest actions can create a ripple effect and the motivation to continue. So I went away from that session with a commitment to drink far more water in a day than I had been doing. And that was my action for the whole of the rest of the 2 weeks in between our next session. And I did it. And so I came back and I went, I did it. And I feel great. And so then I was able to build the next action upon that. And before I knew it, I was working in a way that I was changing things, the way I was doing things. So it's about building those small habits slowly over a period of time until suddenly you don't realize it, but you've achieved something which you couldn't have foreseen at the beginning. So it's really hard when you're focusing on a massive end goal to go, okay, I'm going to go from here to there. But if you take the small steps along the way, and that's where a coach really can help you.
Have you read, or are you a fan of the Atomic Habits book?
Oh, I haven't, no, but it sounds great.
And as I prepare, it's always in my thoughts. This is a book that I've read recently that talks exactly, it's a bit kind of shiny, isn't it? Talks exactly about what you were just saying then. Actually, it just made me sort of think that this has been a really great resource for me. Like, I actually listen to audiobooks. I never buy books because I don't read, but I've actually bought this one almost like a textbook a little bit, so I can kind of,
so you dip in and out.
Yeah, because I think that's the bit that I kept coming unstuck around, was those maybe my actions were a little bit too grandiose and actually bringing them down.
And they may be great end actions and end result, but you're not. Tony Robbins has a quote, and I can't remember it exactly, but it's something like, we overestimate what we can do in a week or a month or a day even, but we underestimate what we can do in a period of 10 years. It's something along those lines. So when, if you're building up the small actions, then you'll get to that massive goal, and maybe beyond in 10 years. Suddenly you'll go, oh wow, and I look back at where I've come from.
And that maybe resonates with one of the comments that we've got about helping family to be more compassionate with one another. So let's say the small habit of the small action is that they're practicing it themselves, but how do they know that it's going to influence the other sort of people in their family? Kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit like you were saying, that it's not going to be the one thing, the one small thing, it's going to be the culmination of multiple.
Yes. So you may not get the immediate result that you're looking for, but then it's about experimenting, finding different ways, working with your own thoughts and feelings, staying strong in yourself and having the boundaries to stay strong in the way you're doing things, so not to revert. And so it may be, and we don't have 100% control over it. Again, they have to choose to do it themselves. So we can't make them do it. However, if they see the impact, and by the way, actually, it's a really great, we can use this model to give feedback to others on the impact they're having on us. And feedback, everyone goes, oh, feedback. But when we ask them, can I tell you some of, the way you're impacting me? And when we share our own impact in terms of our own thoughts and feelings and the action that is creating that, people, without saying, and you need to do this instead, or you need to do that, but when we say something like, oh, when you speak in this way to one another, the impact it has on me is this thoughts and these feelings. It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel, it makes me think that, why can't we talk to each other with compassion? Then perhaps that will have a greater impact, because when people see the impact of their actions, they're more likely to change. So my suggestion to that question would be, give feedback. And that's a very vulnerable thing to do. It's a very risky thing to do. And it may not always have the impact that you desire. But when you put yourself out there, more often than not, it comes back tenfold.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, so that is really the tools that I bring. I don't know if you wanted to ask anything else around it. So I do, and have I gone over? Am I under? I don't even know. I think I'm about. Yeah, right. So what I have put up here is for people just to, if they would like to join us on Monday, we run these as I said, we contributed by running some coaching for COVID sessions, which are a large group of people. Some it's up to from 10 to 25 we've had on there before, who all come into a group setting. We have some of our alumni with us, and we go into breakout rooms, and we bring a different tool each week, which then we discuss and we apply to our situation. And really, it's just also a great place to feel supported. You know, some people come along and don't even talk, but they come along to just feel supported. And we've had people who've come back time and time again. But we're there every Monday. There's a registration link there, mpa.news/C4C, which I guess I could put in the chat. But yes, please feel free to come along. And of course, if you're interested in any of our other work in becoming a coach or having coaching, then please also find us and get in touch. Yeah, so
I think that's brilliant. And like, this is you know, to know these things exist. I think, again, another sort of silver lining of this kind of whole lockdown scenario is that I think, and I don't know whether this is because I'm someone that actively seeks out this type of information, but there is so much out there, and I think it's always that that case of, you know, whatever you're looking for, there is a solution out there that is going to be right for you. But the fact now that actually we can try out a lot of these things, so whether you're on the call live just now in the Zoom room, or if you are watching through the Facebook group, also our other virtual safe space, or whether you're watching this on replay or whether someone has shared it with you, I think this is a great chance for you to, you know, let's say, take advantage of this really kind offer that the North Point Academy have put together to experience coaching. As someone also that has been coached and is qualified in one area of coaching, around health coaching, I do see, you know, real benefit for that place of, and I think sometimes, again, we'll bring it back to the sort of mental health conversation. I think coaching feels like it's a little bit more, you know, all athletes have coaches. You know, it feels a little bit more that we're in that sort of socially acceptable place. Oh, well, I've got a coach, you know, I'm getting coached. It's maybe in a little bit more softer space where, you know, unfortunately, you know, therapists, that whole space still is held back a little bit from the area. So this is a great opportunity to get a little bit of an understanding of what coaching can kind of look like, how it can benefit you. I'm really grateful that you can brought these tools for us to start thinking about things, you know, from our own perspective. And I know a couple of people on the call, you know, are in roles in their office that actually I can see how useful they will be in a sort of a work setting as well, and also with people commenting from a family setting too, how that can be productive. It's almost like we're creating these like mini minions who can kind of go out there and, you know a bit more about things and about thoughts and feelings, and actually then be able to positively impact their own life and other people. So
I mean we have people who come on our course who are there for their own, not to become an accredited coach, even though they're taking the whole accreditation, but for their own self-development and to help them to grow. And also we've had various people who've come on who are homeschooling, or who, you know, and have been for a while homeschooling, and or who are just looking to have better relationships. And these skills can really help you with your relationships. So as the comment and the question came in around that, I suggested giving feedback. If we can start communicating in a way that can get better results, then we're going to have better relationships with people. And the other thing that kind of came up for me when you were speaking is, yes, you're right. Coaching is not a panacea for everything. It's not the answer to everything. It works hand in hand, especially in the area of mental health, with a whole number of things, but it can still be useful. And I know that a number of therapists and counselors are moving towards a more coaching approach, and there are lots of crossovers as well, as you're saying with your hands there. The listening skills, the asking powerful questions to get people to think, and to helping them come up with their own answers, which are all things that counselors do.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, yeah.
We've got a question. Curious to know, is there a group of people that are difficult to coach?
I don't know if I would. I mean, there are certainly individuals I've had difficulties in coaching. And I think it's where there's perhaps a wish to put the responsibility back on the coach. So they're looking for someone to hold their hands through everything and tell them what to do. And so they're looking for answers. You know, what would you do? What are your ideas? And I'm not empowering them if I step into that space. And if it can be quite difficult if someone's consistently putting that back on you and saying, can you help me here with some of your ideas? What do you think? And they're then seeing you as the expert. It's a pattern that they have to look to other people instead of recognizing what's in. And so it's just over time consistently putting it back to them and letting them know that you believe in them to come up with these answers. And so there's a few rough sessions in there. And I mentioned a difficult client that I had earlier, and I actually chose not to work with her in the end. We finished the relationship because she was constantly in that kind of problem space, but putting her responsibility outside of herself and not willing to see how she was responsible for making the situation. And that may sound quite harsh to some people as well, but we do make our own situation, we have a part to play in it at least. And so she wasn't even willing to look at how am I in some way responsible for this? And even if I'm not, is it useful for me to stay in the space? But is it doing anything? Is it moving me forwards? So she wasn't in the moving forward space. So I think that's probably the commonality, as I'm seeing in that comment, where someone is just not willing to move forwards consistently, and they're having trouble taking responsibility for their part that they play in it. And in that case, it's not a matter of dropping them and going, you're a difficult client. I tend not to think of them in that way. I tend to think of clients as having difficulties that need something other than coaching. Yeah. So perhaps, they do need someone to help them through. And the worst thing I could do then is say, oh, by the way, I don't think you're suitable for coaching. Off you go. I would coach them to find their own solution for what they need instead. So, how is the coaching helping you? Is it being useful? Is it useful for you? Do you think it's the right thing for you at this time, or is there something that would be more appropriate? And coaching them to help them to find that answer. And then it's like, okay, so what do you need to do to find someone? So I don't want to leave them in that space of, oh, I'm, where do I go now? So I would help them to find the action to find what they did need.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of sort of a little bit of difference. I don't know. I still think there's a connection between, like we're saying, like counselling and coaching. You can't really coach someone that is looking for a band-aid, or looking just to, not wanting to change. I don't know. That sounds a little bit ironic, because I think we all I don't want this anxiety, and I don't want to be living in this, toxic relationship, or I don't want this. But also there has to be a little bit within us that we have to embrace change and understand what it's where our where we can make movements for good and bad in that space. So I think and it's even from our perspective, you're always going to find people that you can work with, and there's all people that are kind of on your sort of like wavelength, shall we say, even from like a safe space perspective. You know, our message isn't always going to resonate with everybody, and even from a corporate perspective, you know, for us, we really want to work with companies that want to change themselves. You know, for us, mental health and the sort of safe space service that we provide isn't that band-aid. You know, don't come and work with us for a month. Actually, this is something to look at a longer term, you know, relationship and how we can kind of grow together versus just fix the stuff that's not kind of working for us right now. And I think that I made shit when I was working with a coach. I made a lot of shifts when I had that realization myself. It's almost like we could have spent like the first, you know, 10 sessions just working on that, and then it was, oh, right, okay. I see.
And it's true, and it's true. Spending the time on understanding where you currently are and how you don't want to be there anymore is a great place to start. And then it's like, what is that amazing future that I want for myself? You know, even if I find it difficult to focus on and believe that it can happen. And that creates tension that allows us to get new ideas and float forward. So but yeah, like yourselves, we like to work with people over a period of time, long term. It's all about relationships for us. As you can see from our purpose, it's around transformational communities of people who are living from the inside out, which really speaks into what you're saying. So we can't do that in a one-off training session for someone, or 2 or 3 coaching sessions. It needs to be a long-term relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So if anyone does have any final questions, we've probably got time for one more question. If you want to leave it in the chat box or the Q&A. So yes, just tell us one more time how we can get in touch with you. Well, North Point in general, and also for the coaching for COVID sessions as well. Remind us when they are and how we can get in touch.
Great. So so the coaching for COVID, I have actually popped the link into the chat. It's mpa.news/C4C, where you can sign up for that. But if you want to take a look at our website, it's northpoint.ac. And our social media handles are all at NPA HQ. So North Point Academy headquarters, because we're global now. So you can find us on any of those things. On the Monday evening, it's a 7:30 p.m. UK start. I nearly said 4:30, but it's 7:30 p.m. in the UAE. And it runs for around 90 minutes. And it really is there to support people through any of their emotions they're going through. We start off with a commencement tool, which helps people to gain focus, and then we get into a coaching discussion. So last week we were talking about emotional intelligence. This coming week we'll be talking about the change curve, which you may know from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, which is around, it was originally developed around grieving and terminally ill patients and people, and how they coped with the change and going from denial to acceptance. And but it's also been applied in the leadership, organizational, personal development space now as well. So it seems to be that this is how we deal with change. So I will be facilitating that this coming week on Monday. So
I know we've got people on the call from the UK as well as the UAE. So it's 4:30 in the UK, 7:30 in the UAE, and if you're anywhere in between, Google will be able to help you figure out the time.
When you sign up, I think you put where you are and it tells you what the time is. So there you go.
I love technology. Super. Okay, so thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. We love what you guys are doing. We're big fans, and we're really grateful of your kind of support, sharing this information with us, and also, you know, putting stuff out there for people to also get involved with. It's obviously is very close to our vision as well. Yes. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And it's Thursday for us, so it's our weekend. I know you've got one more day, but I've got a good weekend when it comes for you too. And I'm sure we will be back in touch doing some more stuff together in a very short future. So